I have a question about 356H form. If the new facility that needs to be introduced in the NDA is all used for storage only, is it still expected to be listed in the NDA as a new facility?
So the facilities that do not require evaluation, we consider them NEN facilities. They do not have to be listed on the 356H form. And Thaoly, please chime in.
So for storage of your API or drug product for commercial purposes, that has to be listed.
Thank you. So Jeff, Corey, do me a favor, please. This is the most compliment panel we've had for the day. Can someone take a photograph for me, please? All right, in-house question, please.
Okay, thanks for the presentation. Now we know there are lots of communication pathway before submission with FDA, but the one question we have first that we are looking for the scientific advice for an alternative approach of BE. So when we submitted a CC, that we didn't receive the response from FDA because our question is related to multiple discipline, and so that we have requested a pre-ENDA meeting, but however, we again rejected by FDA because our product is non-complex. So how should we do for this kind of question to connect with FDA?
So if I understood you correctly, you did not get any response for the control correspondence as well as pre-ENDA meeting?
Yes, that's right. Our product is non-complex and we have PSG available, but we are looking for a alternative approach such like a BCS-based biowaiver.
So in denial of the meeting request, they must have given some reason. Pre-ENDA meeting.
Yes, it says that our product is non-complex, so they reject it.
So control correspondence should work. You should try again.
We should try again?
Yes, there's no harm. You can submit as many control correspondence.
So I should attach the response from pre-ENDA meeting and resubmit the CC again?
That should be fine.
Okay, I don't understand.
Thank you. Next question in-house, please.
Yes. So I have a question for Dr. Joseph Kotsybar. So regarding PSGs, we have two avenues to give our feedback. One within 60 days once the PSG is published, and other is the PSG T-cons. But the thing is, PSG T-con is applicable if the applicant has already initiated the biostudy or completed the biostudy. But the thing is, most of the time, when the PSG is published and when we carry out this study, we find out, okay, whether we have any comment or not. But that by the time we finish this study, it's already late because we started this study after the PSG was published. So we are not now applicable for the PSG T-con, and the 60 days are already over. So we are not applicable for giving the feedback. But we want to have communication and give our feedback. What is additional avenue available to us?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So to rephrase the question, from what I understood, is you're looking for just a second or an alternate avenue rather than
yes.
T-cons if you've studied or you finished your study and then the PhD is posted?
Yeah.
So it's really going to be a case-by-case approach, I would say here. The best resource I could give would be that forecast list. And if you see the newer revised PSG changing or upcoming to be published, that would be kind of a dead giveaway that maybe a CC then is needed to address any concerns if you see a PSG is about to change. But other than that, I do think that's going to be pretty case-by-case depending on what the product is and what the studies were done.
Okay, maybe we'll discuss offline because otherwise she'll say not to.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Online question, please.
Yes, this question is for Dr. Kotsybar. Where can the industry find the classification of change if the PSG is going to be revised?
So there's no straightforward, just updates to the PSG page itself. But on the forecast list, it will always indicate what the revision is doing. So they'll give a little bit more clarity on the forecast list too, saying, not only if it's minor or major, but then go into detail whether it's clarification of a in vivo study or clarification of a in vitro study. So that again would be kind of the best place to learn before the PSG is updated, because once it's updated, only that current recommendation is going to be able to display it on the page, because that's just the current FDA recommendation for that PSG.
Thank you. In-house, please.
So the FDA's general guidance on drug device combination human factor studies for ANDS, FDA recommends that if there is a change in the device, for example, from wild to PFS, FDA is open to considering it as a 505J rather than 505B2. So the question is, but they recommend the companies to contact FDA prior to doing the BE study. The company didn't contact the FDA prior to conducting the BE study. So what would be the route now to contact FDA and confirm whether, they can still submit by 505J? There is no change in the route of administration. The only change is in the device.
That's an interesting one. I would say any specific questions could be followed up with a CC, a controlled correspondence to the agency. That question I think is a little too specific though to address in this forum. But I would recommend a CC would be the next steps to.
Not pre-submission meeting, because the study is already completed.
Yeah, you can submit a product development meeting if a control correspondence would not suit.
Thank you.
Thank you. In-house, please.
Okay, I have one question related to without development alternative sort of the drug substance. So should we also follow the PSG guidance, or what would the recommendation from FDA?
Yeah, so to rephrase the question is if you wanted to conduct an alternative approach that's not in the PSG?
No, the alternative salt of the drug substance.
Alternative salt form. That's a good question. Typically, the specific salt forms will be indicated in the API, in the specific PSGs. If you're looking for a different salt form for that API, I would think you'd want to send that in as a CC or a pre-development meeting to get that addressed, because typically the PSGs are going to be specific to that API salt form.
Okay.
Thank you. So I'm getting a really good concept here, really good undertone, being best friends with that control correspondence guidance. Okay, online, please.
Hi, yes, this question is for Caliope Sarago. Will FDA accept a product development meeting for non-complex products?
Yes, if under FDA's discretion, we may grant for a non-complex product, and this would be a may grant situation. And it would depend on the complexity of the questions and if your meeting package is complete, but we would, if it met the basic criteria, then we would accept for a non-complex product.
Thank you. In-house, please.
Okay. Hi. This is related to the 356H facility status. Is the facility listed as new only on the original ANDA, or does it stay new until that ANDA is approved?
So in let's say it's review one or the first cycle of the original application. So at that point, it'll be marked as new. If there's a CR letter issued and now we're in review cycle 2, if you're not introducing another new site at that point, it would not be new because it was already introduced in cycle 1.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. In-house?
Thank you for your presentations. Regarding update of PSGs, is an estimation possible by when all existing PhDs will be adapted to ICH M13A?
Yeah, that's another great question. So referring back to the presentation, a good chunk of them have already been taken care of with that initial standalone batch. I do think there's a few more kind of internally scheduled to be posted, but for the most part, most of these PhDs have been updated to reflect the current M13A guidance. But again, it's never going to be, it's always going to be, maybe additional ones. So for every single batch, pre-scheduled batch, you can look for the forecast list, because that forecast list will clearly identify if the revision is undergoing the ICH M13A update.
Thank you.
Online question, please.
This question is for Dr. Ihezie and Dr. Lee. Should the 356H include the establishment used for manufacturing of starting materials of API and/or any other establishment that is not an intermediate material and is not related to the manufacturing or testing of the API?
So for the starting material, for every facility involved in API, it's starting material or in-process material. For commercial purposes, it should be on 356H. And can you repeat the second part of the question? Sorry.
Sure, of course. So it was for and/or any other establishment that is not an intermediate material and is not related to manufacturing and/or testing of the API, included on the 356H form.
Okay, so I think if you have those sites to support the ANDA and it's now for commercial purposes, those sites should be listed in your submission, 3.2S or 3.2P.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. In-house question, please, or comment.
Yeah. This is for Haitawa. Just based on your previous answer, GMP starts after you add the starting material and start. So usually we don't put the starting material manufacturing facility in the 356H unless the FDA goes and tells us this is not an acceptable starting material. You need to go higher, more upstream. So it would be nice if you could confirm that, because normally based on, the GMP guidances, the starting material is where the GMP starts.
Right.
So, yeah.
Just because of that particular statement, GMP starts when starting material enters, when we enter the whole process. I think it's good for you to put in that rather than not having that information. Also, because sometimes there's discussion between, is this a true starting material
Right.
or is it intermediate? Have it there, I think helps everybody. But if you don't have it there and we find out that that's not appropriate starting material, it's in the review cycle.
Right, you have to go, yeah.
We might change.
That's very valuable, because people normally were not doing that. They were waiting till,
That's why I think this presentation might help, because we follow a very strict timeline. If you tell us more, it will help us decide, do we need to go for inspection or
not? Okay.
based on our risk analysis, and then that will help, because we do have, as you can see, sometimes we miss some site and we find it later.
Of course, yeah.
When we do the review, it will delay the approval.
That's interesting. I mean, I'm just talking of one option, that in the completeness assessment of a DMF, which is usually done before the submission, you will know if the starting material has been acceptable or not. So based on that, can they make an exception to that?
So you actually bring, so I used to work in DMF9 in this different session. We actually do not, I think you're right. During the complete risk assessment, they already determined what is starting material. So I think if, so I'm kind of confused between this and NDA, because we review both of those facilities. For NDA, we don't have such process, but for ENDA, we do have complete assessment. where you know what is your starting material. See, in those cases, I think you want to talk about your intermediate, like that could be in your process with API, and list those on 356H. And if you, I mean, you don't have to list all the facility on that. If you have any facility you're not sure, you probably put it in your application 3.S, then it's probably better. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more in-house questions? Okay, if you have an in-house questions, please make your way to the microphone.
Brenda, excuse me, I'd like to just add on to a question I didn't get a chance to respond to the gentleman who asked, who had submitted a control correspondence, was rejected, and then you had submitted a pre-enter meeting, is that correct? So what I would say is, for control correspondence, you're correct if you were told that it involved multidisciplinary. So if a multidisciplinary team is required, generally for control correspondence, one discipline will address that question. What I would suggest is that if you're going to submit either a control correspondence or another product development meeting, that you take a look at your questions, because I think if your product development meeting was also rejected, then it did not meet the criteria for what a product development meeting would be. So again, in your denial letter, you would have been, as Arun recommended, you would have been given some additional information to help you find the path forward. Again, if you were going to submit a control correspondence, again, you would have to tailor those questions for a control correspondence. So it's not, I wouldn't just resubmit a control correspondence with the same questions, because it'll probably be rejected. So I would look at your questions, see if you could revise the questions, they would be more suitable for a control correspondence. Or if you're going to submit a product development meeting, take a look at the guidance and see if it meets the criteria for a product development meeting, and then tailor your questions for that.
Thank you very much. In-house question, please.
Thank you. This is Onyeka on 356H. So question, if we submitted or we added a site as a supplement, and the supplement review is still pending, and we have to file an annual report in between, should we capture that site in the 356H, and how should be the status? How should be captured?
Thank you for your question. We would recommend that you capture the status of the site as pending.
Pending.
It should remain pending. Each time, even with the annual reports, just capture the latest status of that facility at that point.
New and pending.
It would not be new, because it's not submitted. It would be considered new if you are proposing for that facility with that submission, which you are not. It's an annual report.
Okay.
So it would not be new, but it would be pending.
Pending. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding the 356H. So when we do a CBE 0 to withdraw, let's say, a defunct facility that no longer exists with the FDA and there's no DUNS or FEI left, how should we handle it on the form?
So I have a question to your question. Was that site previously associated with your application?
Yes.
Okay, so we would have that information on file. So just submit it, fill it out as best you can in as much entirety as possible, and make sure you mark that question, is this facility involved in the change in the supplement? You say yes, and mark it as withdrawn on that form, and we should be able to handle the rest.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any in-house questions, please make your way to the mic, and we will go to an online question now. We'll get to the in-house after. Online, please.
Yes, this question is for Dr. Nguyen. Can you provide examples of which establishments may be listed in Module 3, but do not need to be listed on the Form 356H?
Module 3 facilities may include stability testing sites. I'll defer the technicality of that to.
Stability testing site, that has always to be on 356H, okay, for both for API, intermediate, or drug product. What is permitted in the submission of your body of data is those, for example, you have a site, did your manufacturing for exhibit batches. Those you don't need to put on 356H. Meaning that site is not going to be used for commercial manufacturing. You just use that site, generated your exhibit batch data. Those sites, please put them in your submission 3.2S or P. Thank you.
Exhibit batch means registration batch, you mean?
If it's only for, so whatever is on 356H are related to your commercial activity.
So you can manufacture a batch in one site and need not list on the 356H and still continue commercially in other site.
Yeah, if you, but we would better know.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's like this. If you're making an exhibit batch in block A and you're proposing the block
different
B,
FA number.
Yeah, which you will be having FA number that you will put in module 3.
I don't think so, because without inspecting how will, because that facility is not going to be
No,
inspected.
inspection is going for your commercial site.
No, not the registration batches are. If the registration batches are not done with GMP, how you are going to assure?
But inspection will happen to the readiness of the commercial batches.
Networking question.
Okay. I have a follow-up question to the 356H on the DMF. So you are recommending to include starting material sites also. It is a recommendation, I understand. But since it is a closed part of the DMF, the ANDA holders, most of the times we don't know the starting material manufacturer name also. So in that case, again, it becomes a problem. So I would recommend, if possible, if you have any information, when the DMF form 3938 is going to be enforced.
You know, I do understand that dilemma. However, I think your communication and the holder, you really need to communicate with your DMF holder to understand, is there any intermediate manufacturing site? Is there any cold storage site? You need to understand that in order to ensure that your application get approved, you know, because if you don't know any of them, we are looking at DMF and we are looking at things and you cannot reconcile. You probably get a lot of questions from us. And if it's in the late cycle, it will delay approval.
Yeah, but unfortunately, as of now, most of the DMF manufacturers are not disclosing starting metal manufacturer site address and name.
If starting material is hard to ask those information, I would say that if they have any very advanced intermediate or cold storage or anything like that, or their storage facility for their API, and specifically if it's cold storage, or they have somewhere, I think you need to find that information to ensure you get quality material as a, and the holder.
I have one question on the excipient testing sites need to be listed on 356H.
Excipient, not if it's functional, probably you should, but if it's non-functional standard, it's probably smart to put it in the submission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go to an online question now, please.
All right, so this question is for Dr. Kotsybar. Can the PSG database be keyword searchable? It would be great to find all of the PSGs with certain keywords such as baseline or in vitro or clinical endpoint, etc. Currently, it must be manually mined for that.
Yep, this is a great question and great suggestion. I tend to agree that that would be a very resourceful tool for the PSG database. Unfortunately, the framework with how that database is set up, we do not have that function built in. With no plans to have that function built in, but this is a good suggestion. So when we can ever update that database, this will be something we can take into account.
Thank you. Next online question, please.
Of course, this question is for Dr. Agrawal. Instead of a post-CRL scientific meeting request, can an applicant submit a controlled correspondence after issuance of a CRL?
Okay.
They can submit control correspondence.
And with that very succinct answer, anything else you want to add? No?
No.
We have time for one more question online, please.
All right, this question is for Dr. Caliope Sarago. So if I did not have a product development meeting and want to present novel data to FDA, can I still submit a pre-submission request?
Yes, you may submit a PSEB meeting request without having a PDEV meeting. I share that in my slides. However, it would be beneficial if you did have a PDEV meeting, just because it would give FDA a more in-depth knowledge about your product development, which would help with your PSEB meeting.
Okay. Thank you all to our panel and all those in-depth questions and answers. And let's give our panel a round of applause.